What's up, everyone? Andrew here, as always. I keep finding myself saying I've got an exciting conversation that's going to be happening with somebody that's really inspirational and motivational. And today is no different. I've got a great catch up with an old friend. We've known each other for 24 years. He was my junior at high school, and he's doing some amazing things in the world of youth leadership development. He is an entrepreneur, he's a business consultant, and he's the national president for JCI South Africa, which, like I said, focuses on youth leadership development, which ties in perfectly with what our vision here at Nine Leaders is to equip new and experienced leaders with the skills required to take on this new world. So this is a great chat. I hope you have some fun. I know definitely had. This is Keke Kotsokoane on Nine Leaders. Keke Kotsokoane, how are you, Mania? It's fantastic to see you. It's been a while. Welcome to Nine Leaders. Are you keeping well?
Thanks so much, Andrew. I'm very well. It has been decades. It's been
It
a
literally
long time.
has, eh? I think we were saying now it's about 24 years.
Yeah, it's about 25. I was a small, skinny boy when we first met.
I've got a story about that. I don't know if I'm going to be sharing out of school on that regard, but we obviously know each other from Queen's College, a little town in Queenstown in the Eastern Cape. And I've known you since, I think you were about 12, 13. You were at Queen's.
I was 9 years old, turning 10.
That's shishlak. Then we do definitely go back. Hey, my word. You say small and skinny, but you had a big heart. You had a massive, strong person. The story I'm going to share, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Queen's College obviously was a very traditional boys' school, and I'm saying it's not for your benefit, but for the listeners. Very traditional. You had a sort of mentorship mindset of all the senior boys would have a junior boy that would be their, what we call the skunk.
Yeah.
You remember all of that mentorship. That was the idea behind it, but it was effectively just you were doing stuff for the senior boys. Absolutely. And one thing that always stood out for me when you got to senior school was we had that, I don't know if you remember, it was pre-cell phone days where if you wanted to send a love letter or anything to the girls at the girls' school, there was an internal post system that you put your letter in the post box at first break, and then it would get delivered at second break and the reverse. And I remember one time where it clearly stood out to me. I remember this, and I thought, this guy's going somewhere. Boys weren't allowed to go across the road to the girls' school at any time during the school day, and I'd forgotten to send my letter to my girlfriend, and I knew I was going to be in trouble. And I said to you, listen, don't you want to just pop across? I know this is wrong. You're going to be, I'll take responsibility, but just pop to the gate, just give it to one of the girls, and then if you don't mind, just sneak across. And you went the extra mile. You were like, not a chance. I'm going to find Andrew's girlfriend and hand deliver his love letter. And you did. You were absolutely, I was like, she's like, this guy has got some cojones. He's flipping awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like something I would do.
Oh man, it's really good to catch up with you. Like, it's been a while, and you've been doing some amazing things. Just been following your story over the last little while, seeing what you've been up to, and I really just wanted to have you on. I thought it would be a fantastic conversation to have, specifically around what you do, how you do it, your work from a youth development element. And I just thought you'd be the perfect person to have on the discussion. So not only is it's a good personal call, but I think it's definitely, I'm excited to see what you've been up to, what you've been doing. So just take us back. I mean, last time I saw you probably 1998. What's happened in the last 24 years? Where you find yourself now? What's the story? Just take us away.
Oh, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, it's a long journey. I think the journey actually started in Queen's College. I think around grade 10, if I remember correctly. I was part of the Methodist youth group. So my journey of leadership started within the church, context of the church. And at that time, the youth pastor resigned, and the church was not going to employ another youth pastor.
Okay.
And we were quite a large group. And so I remember meeting with the pastor at that time and his daughter. And then I just out of that boldness, probably you were referring to, I just said, okay, I'll run the thing. Don't worry about it. Then I'll take responsibility for it. And I did. It was quite an interesting challenge. I think I was about 15 years old in grade 10.
Yeah.
Going through puberty and telling people about God and trying to lead a very young team, introducing things. And I think a lot of my lessons started there. Then moved on to varsity, studied internal auditing in Bloem. And then I realized that I got kicked out of class because the author of the textbook who happened to be the lecturer.
Okay.
And something didn't make sense in the textbook. And I challenged him on that. I was like, no, but this doesn't make sense from an auditing perspective. And he said to me, well, then it's either you go my way or you fail the course. Really? And then I said to him, you can fail me the course, it's fine. And he
big
failed
cojones, like I said.
And I failed that year. I got a different lecture and a new book, and then managed to graduate from that. Then that's when my consultancy work started. So my first job was an intern as an accountant in a company in Bloem. Very small company, but it was doing very well. And then I left that because I didn't kind of feel that it was a perfect fit for me, because the field of auditing and the idea of just traveling and being away from family, just for me was an absolute no.
Yeah.
And that's what motivated me to start my own firm. And so I studied a bit further to sharpen my accounting skills. And then I started my own firm in 2014. And it's been entrepreneurship ever since then. And there's no turning back. I wouldn't choose any other journey.
It's Pigeonhole, correct, is the name of the consultancy.
Yeah, Pigeonhole. Yeah, that's the name of the consulting company. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So yeah, we started it in the spare bedroom of my apartment, and we've grown a bit now. We've got customers across the country. It's very nice. Nice bunch of people to work with. It's good when you work with people that you enjoy. The
100%.
customers that you don't enjoy, it's not that nice.
Absolutely. And you've got to be in the position to understand the people that you work with internally within your business, but also having the same vision, all of that, but also having the right, knowing the niche type of clients that you actually want to do work with and to do good work with.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's a bit of the business side, and I'll share a bit more as we go along. JCI, I started JCI in 2015 in Bloem. I was just a member there. It got started by a friend of mine who asked me to join. In 2016, we have an office in JCI known as the General Legal Counsel.
Okay.
But that's essentially, that person must just know the Constitution and be able to guide people with the Constitution of our organization. So for the listeners and the viewers, JCI is a leadership development organization, completely member-based. It's voluntary, but you get trainings and you get the opportunity to travel and network with people from across the world, because we've got JCI as a global organization. So you get to travel, you get to meet different people from different sectors of societies. I think one of my favorite stories about JCI was when I had a crush on a girl that could only speak French. Now, that was a fascinating time. So it teaches you a lot.
And a man with a purpose. Oh,
yes.
So you learned French, I take it.
I did a crash course in French so quickly. Google Translate was my best friend.
A motivated
but it taught
man.
me something interesting about people. Like sometimes you don't have to speak the same language, but people feel your energy. They 100%. Feel your authenticity, and then they can work with you. And that's been the biggest lesson of JCI. And so, yeah, I then became the local chapter president of JCI in Bloemfontein in 2017. And then in 2019, I was the National Secretary General. In 2020, I was the Vice President. And then 2021, Executive Vice President, which led to where I am now in 2022, the National President of JCI South Africa.
It's fantastic.
Been a fantastic journey. Been a journey of learning and growth. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, the impact in the work that you guys do, I've looked up a little bit about it, and it really, really does speak to that youth market. And like you said, leadership development within that youth space. The type of work that you do, I mean, you said it's training, it's leadership development. What is sort of the mind, the reasoning and the purpose behind it? What's the mission for
So
JCR?
the mission, and I'll recite the mission to you. Our mission is to provide development opportunities to young people who can create positive change. That's what we do. And how we go about it is we will have training sessions. So we'll teach young people on how to run an effective project, how to hold an effective meeting. And this kind of teaches you how to speak to different stakeholders. And then after you've done those trainings, go out into your community and run those effective meetings with the community, run a project with your community. So our philosophy would be that when we get involved in something, we always have an exit plan. Okay. So young people get in, you run a project together with stakeholders. The idea is to make sure that the community that you're impacting will be able to sustain that project. So we don't necessarily sustain projects. We come in as catalysts to say, we've looked around this community, we see these are the challenges, these are the solutions we're thinking about. We bring around civil society, business, and government in trying to bring a solution, and then leave it in the hands of the community to do that. This was something that I remember I did it with a group of ours in Bloemfontein in 2018. It was quite a fascinating process. So in 2018, there was a lot of gangsterism in the location in Bloemfontein, and this was a problem. That now kids were getting killed during school hours in schools, that schools were closed. So we took it upon ourselves that, you know what, let's try to bring something, a solution to this. We went to the municipality and we said, where can we help? What are the issues? And one thing about people, well, people will always be ready to tell you what the issues are. That's free information. You don't even have to just ask them what's up and they will give you a list. And so the municipality gave us a list from employment, from housing and accommodation for students that come from outside of Bloemfontein. And then they raised the gangsterism issue. And then we had to ask them, now, which one is the most serious of them all? And obviously they'll say everything is serious. And like, yeah, we understand everything is serious, but which one right now is critical for right now? And then they mentioned the gangsterism. And we're like, okay. Then we engaged again with the municipality. I think we had about 4 engagements with them. And then through our philosophy and telling them how we think is the best way we can go about this, we were able to get the police, different government departments, and different civil societies that are based in the location into one room where we could all now talk about how we're going to address this solution. Some of the findings were quite scary. It was quite scary to find out that the police themselves were afraid of the gangs. So the police were not able to go in and address the situation. Yeah. And we were able to come up with a holistic situation where we were like, we need the police to bring a presence that says, if you do something, we will take serious force. But the other civil societies, the guys that were involved in sport, the chess clubs, you know, the knitting clubs or whatever, come on board so that when the police are around, take a few of these kids and go play a soccer game. Take a few of these kids, go do an extramural activity. I kid you not, that meeting we had it in February. In June, we never heard of gangsterism again. But really? And that was the end of that at that point in time. And since that time, never heard anything about that since then in 2018.
That's brilliant. And one of the philosophies you got there is with regards to that one person being active, making a stand and taking action can change the world. And it's just about who's that person that's going to stand up and actually and make a change. And I think from a continent perspective, I mean, there's so many stories, even South African history. You look at the role that youth played and the importance that the youth played throughout the 1940s, 1950s, all the way up through to the new South Africa and all of that. And we can't underplay the importance that youth bring to the table. I read a statistic the other day that in 2015, 226 million Africans were between the ages of 15 and 24. That was 2015. The forecasts are by 2030, so it's only 8 years away, that it's going to be, and there was 19% of the African continent was between 15 and 24. Whereas by 2030, that number is going to be 42% of Africa's population is going to be between 15 and 24. So that's the work, that's the place, the market, if you want to call it, the field that you're playing in. And it's such, I don't want to underplay the importance of that work. In that process, what I really like about what you said now, it's not just about doing an intervention and then you solving the problem. It's not about that necessarily. It's about the community being equipped and solving their own problems. Is that pretty much right?
That's exactly what it is. That is it. So and our philosophy is that I can never know what challenges you are facing, Andrew. You can tell me about them, but I will never be able to understand them as much as you understand them. But as JCI, we say, if I can give you the skills and the competencies for you to be able to address your own issues and to make something beautiful out of them, then we feel we would have done our work, because we would have developed you into a community leader, and you would lead through that process and develop other people as well. So we're not a charity yet. That's something that we always repeat to ourselves, that we're not a charity. We're here to develop young people so that they can lead in various sectors. Firstly, that they can lead themselves, and then develop them to become business leaders, to become community leaders, and to be international leaders.
Love it.
International leaders, I think one thing that a lot of people don't understand, I'm learning this now as a national president, that it's a whole different game to be an international leader. The broadening of your understanding of different cultures and perspectives, you've got to be switched on all the time, because you can just say one thing and you could have just lost a complete nation.
100%.
Now they hate you.
Absolutely.
So,
That's exciting. She's like, man, it's really, really good. Obviously, JCR is the one element. You also mentioned with regards to your management consulting. So that's your sort of day-to-day job, while your JCR national presidency is more the volunteering. You mentioned you spoke through setting up your own business. How did you find that? I mean, 2014, you went on your own, you decided, no, listen, I'm doing my own thing. From a young person's perspective, setting up, being entrepreneurial mindset, what sort of advice would you give someone that's thinking about branching out on their own? If it's a side hustle, if it's not necessarily that they're leaving their job, or that they might not have a job to start with and they need to do their own thing, what sort of advice would you give somebody that's starting out in life, that's entrepreneurial, that's got a mindset, they've got an idea, and they think that they might do well in the market? What advice would you give them?
I don't think my advice is very conventional, but what I would say is, if you're going to start your own business and you tell yourself that you're going to be a millionaire in 5 years, just multiply that 5 by 3.
Okay.
Because the road is long. You're going to trip up, you're going to fall, you're going to make silly decisions.
Yeah.
So, and I think the most important thing, if you're going to go into business, just make peace with that. It's a journey. It's not get in, make your money, and be immediately rich. No, it's a completely different life.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say, do an audit of your life. Ask yourself some serious questions, because I can never say that I have a professional life and I have a JCI life and I have a family life.
Yeah.
The moment that I categorize like that, you lose authenticity.
Right.
Because then you're different in different areas, so nobody knows who you are. So make sure that you've got a set of personal values that you will apply, that are consistent in your personal life, in your volunteering life, in your family life, and in your business life, because everything is connected.
I love that.
Be authentic and put down the hard work.
Absolutely. So authentic, you mentioned earlier about the work that you do with youngsters is also around ownership and accountability, understanding yourself, how that potentially flows into your business, how it flows into the community. Everything is connected, from the individual right up to international. We're all connected. We live in a world that is connected in multiple different ways, and everybody has an influence and an impact on that. So make sure, as yourself, you're authentic. take ownership and responsibility for what is within your realm. In regards to that, I mean, the last 2 years, over 2 years now, with obviously COVID and all of that, how working so closely with both business and that youth sphere, what have you seen the impact being? How has it affected people's mindsets in terms of youth's view of the future, potentially, of what that hope can possibly be? What have you sort of identified as some sort of key points?
Well, COVID had a lot of mixed reactions from different people. So some people really focused on that, hey, you know what, I can take a break and then focus on my mental health. Or some people saw it as the end of the world. Some people, like for an example, in our business, that was the best year ever. For some odd reason, it was really our best financial year. So it was a good year for us, whereas one of my colleagues, it wasn't a good year for him. But I think what COVID really taught us is that it goes back to that authenticity thing. The only thing that's consistent in life are your relationships and who you are with people. Everything comes through people.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have good relationships with people, if you didn't have a good relationship with your family, you missed them during COVID. It did bring us together. But I do also think that once we started started getting used to COVID, we forgot that brotherhood of man all over again. So it brought us together. In some cases, like, what happened, George Floyd, in different parts of the country and the world, it really showed the divisions. But there was a world emphasis of, hey, we are all together in this. I mean, for an example, take George Floyd. It might be a touchy subject, but one person gets horribly murdered in America and the whole world is united. That ripple effect, that people in London start having protests, people in South Africa have protests. So it brought us all together. And then the moment that we could start buying alcohol, we forgot. We completely forgot that, hey, we are united in a struggle to make the world better.
Yeah.
And I think that's the sad part of COVID, that we quickly forgot where we just came from. And I think for young people, one thing I think young people need to do a lot. Firstly, keep quiet. That's one of the things I learned in my leadership journey.
Okay.
If you have the opportunity to be in a room, that doesn't mean that you have the right to say something.
Right.
Earn that right.
But I've got TikTok, I've got social media, I've got Facebook. I can tweet out anything, anytime. Come on.
Yeah, you definitely can. And you can get addicted to the likes, and you can get addicted to the
but reactions. I need my voice heard. Keke, come now. I need to stand up. I need to be heard.
You need to be heard, but so does a trumpet in the hands of a useless player. So do you want to be the player that makes an impact, or do you just want to be the instrument that makes any sound?
Oh, I like that. I like that.
And so I generally think we need to decide as individuals. So I make a decision that what is my message going to be? And my message has to be authentic to who I am. I can't, for an example, talk about politics. I'm not a politician. But at the same time, I need to pay respect to those that are in that field. So for an example, one thing that I would personally never do, I'll take Jacob Zuma for an example. I may have my opinion about how he is as a president of the Republic. I've never run the Republic of South Africa. I've never had that much responsibility. If I say that I am a fellow leader, I should have some element of compassion to understand with the little thing that I'm leading. Multiply that by 100. His decisions, if my decisions are tough, how are his decisions? And then you start to think differently. Your mind starts to process things differently. That, okay, perhaps I'm not now advocating that we shouldn't hold him accountable, but what I'm saying is we just approach things a bit differently. And so that I took that position of that. There was a time I used to criticize leaders. There was, specifically in 2020, especially when it came to racial matters. I was very vocal on that. I don't believe in injustice whatsoever. And I don't believe in any one of us turning a blind eye to injustice. And then that boldness, I will call you out irrespective of who you are. I will take you on. But I also learned in the process that which is better, to take on somebody more powerful than you, or to make them an ally so that you can be more influential. And then the approach, the decision you make will affect your approach. It will influence what you need to learn. And I've had to learn to bite my tongue in certain moments so that I could have a more impactful voice when it matters.
That's really, really insightful. So what's that old saying of rather let people think that you're silly and keep quiet, and let people think you're silly, or open your mouth and let them know that you're silly. Absolutely. That makes sense. Absolutely. Interesting.
So yeah.
Do you think, and again, the work that you do from a youth perspective, what is the sort of general feeling? And again, from an opinion base, but what have you seen? Are that youth group, that 15 to 24, or even up to 40,
sure.
Are they hopeful? Is the general thought that there's something to work towards, that I can improve? We went through a huge excitement phase in the 90s when there was a lot of change happening in South Africa. We had the whole Rainbow Nation thing, got into the 2010 World Cup, and everybody was positive. There was things were happening. The country was growing. Do you think the youth still have that same enthusiasm, or is it interpreted in different ways?
Absolutely. I think we're in a time where youth, not just only in our country, but that I've seen across the African continent, they are very, very hopeful, but they've become measured in their hope.
Okay.
So, and for me, which is a good thing. It's one thing to be excited now, and then when obstacles come your way, and then you lose that passion. Yeah. But what I'm seeing with a lot of young people is that they've become so measured. The amount of resilience and hope and energy that these young people have now, I regard myself as quite fresh and agile, and I feel myself struggling to keep up with them, because they absolutely believe that anything can be done. And I love the fact that they believe that it can be done now.
Yeah.
So they're people that want to take action right now. And I think it's a good transition from, I don't know if I should say, let me say probably my peers. We are more thoughtful about the future. So we tend to think, okay, yeah, the economy can get better. And then we tend to rely on, but how? So we need to change policies. We need to bring back industrial. We tend to think like that. Young people think like, we can change this. How are we going to do this? Okay, we got TikTok, we got this, we're doing it now. For them, we're doing it now. So you find yourself having to manage that energy. And I think that's the brilliance about young people. Young people have got a lot of energy.
So in that regard, a lot of the corporate work I do, obviously there's lots of conversations around this new workforce that's coming into business, and the whole millennial versus Gen X versus Gen Z, and these middle-aged managers are just going, I cannot handle these youngsters who've got no focus. They're just all over the place. They want everything for nothing. They want it now. As a leader in your position, you face this every day. How have you adapted your leadership style to incorporate that? Because let's be honest, both of us are from a little bit of a different generation. We're sort of on that border. But for the older guys going, I can't even speak their language. I don't understand when it's not even language side of things. In South Africa, we've got the amount of language. It's literally, I'm not understanding.
Sure.
Even in my own language, where they're going. So how have you adapted your leadership style to that?
So it's a unique, I think we find ourselves in a unique situation, because you've got about 3 generations alive at the same time on planet Earth. And that's so fascinating. And the oldest generation is where the wealth is. Then you've got the younger generation, and they want that wealth. And then you've got us in the middle that are, climbing towards that sort of wealth that we're supposed to kind of take over. And I would say for me, it's quite interesting. I had a meeting with younger people, part of JCI yesterday, and I was the oldest in the meeting. Yeah. Most of the times I had to mute my mic and be like, oh my goodness, Jesus, how am I going to go about this? But you adapt your leadership by make people feel that you understand them. And sometimes people feel that you understand them, even if you say, I don't understand. Because you show a vulnerability to them that says to them, oh, okay, we can teach you something, old man. Come, come, come. And the young generation is always welcome. If you want to win with young people, show them that you're willing to learn from them before you try to teach them something.
Love that.
So I've noticed that young people don't care how much you know, until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
So if middle management, and this is some of the work that we do as a company, where we actually get into a company on our consulting role, and we try to bridge the gap between management and staff. And it's just a matter of understanding people. So you come in and you're like, oh, I see you're this type of personality, you like this. And the moment a person feels understood, you've won their hearts and their eyes light up. And young people are willing to run for people that they believe understand them.
Yeah.
And that's very critical. If you can understand them, you can understand their needs, then patience. Oh, with young people, it's patience. You've got to show them how you're seeing things and then invite them to criticize how you're seeing things. It will be annoying, but you don't push them away. And you give them that hope that, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm struggling with accepting it this way. So how about we try my way for now so that I can feel a bit comfortable. And over time, you can introduce me into this. They're not going to have a problem with that. The problem is that most of the time we just say, no, you don't know anything.
My way or the highway.
Exactly.
Like your
Which is not a wrong
professor.
Perhaps the approach is wrong, but the principle is right. Because I always tell young people, remember that you don't know anything right now. You're just stepping into this now. What you have is knowledge. What this person has is experience. One of the things I used to tell young accountants is that what you study in the textbook is not what you're going to practice after you graduate. Be open. And that switch always gets done. It's like, but this is not how it's done. And you just find a middle manager say, it's not done like that according to who? And they'll be like, according to the textbook. And then they'll be like, yeah, but SAR says this is fine. So we're doing it this way.
Yeah.
So it's that having to be, both parties need to be open to learning and to hearing each other out.
Absolutely. I think 2 points there. One is we live in a world now where knowledge is cheap. You can go onto YouTube and find solutions and answers for anything. Knowledge is cheap, but wisdom and experience comes at a cost. And whether the cost is financial cost or life cost or whatever it might be, that is where the value almost lies. Is knowledge is a commodity. You can get it very cheaply, but wisdom and experience, and also to that point of what you just said now, it's not necessarily what we know or what we do, it's how we do it. So dealing with youngsters, youth in the business, it's about collaborating, bringing them in, understanding. And I think it also links back to what you said earlier, is that they're excited, they've got a lot of pace, they want it done now. But they also, I think you used the word measured in terms of how it gets done, and almost seeing this generation looks beyond that. They've got so much from a social media, from a marketing perspective, they've been bombarded with so much all the time that they almost are trained to go, well, what's sitting behind that? So as a leader, you saying something is all well and good, but your young people are going, what's behind that? What's the motivation behind saying that? And they're very quick to see through the BS.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
They are. Absolutely, they are. And I think the quickest way to get young people to rally behind you or to support you is be vulnerable. Tell them the truth. So if you're middle management and you're saying, look, the company's making this decision, you've got to be honest with them. And the hardest thing is to have those kind of conversations. I had to have a conversation with an employee of another company where I said to him, look, I see you. I personally believe in you from what I've seen, but your boss doesn't like you. They have no reason to fire you except for the fact that you make them uncomfortable and they can't trust you in their business. So how do we address that? And it shook him, because I mean, he's a very chilled guy, but the boss didn't like him because of his associates. And I'm like, so how are we going to address this? And they come up with solutions. And that's why I love leading young people. You don't have to think hard. They will come up with solutions. They've got solutions already. What they need is just the wind behind their sails to say, implement the solution, I've got your back. And if you say to young people, you've got their back, make sure you've got their back.
So what I'm hearing is it's not about necessarily giving the right answers to them. It's about asking the right questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So they can actually, and again, from a coaching perspective, that's exactly what I do on a daily basis is going, I'm not here as a coach, whether it's from a leadership perspective or executive, whatever it might be. I'm not about giving you the answers to your business problems. It's about me asking the right questions for you to come up with the solutions and the solving the problems that you've got. I love that. That's very, very interesting and a great perspective. And I think I'm going to quote you if that's okay. I'm going to use a lot of what you said now in a lot of what I do, especially when it comes up to that generational divide that corporate's dealing with at the moment. Looking forward. So now you mentioned earlier around that in your opinion, that the youth have definitely got hope around the future, and that they want things to move at a pace, and that they want to see change, they want to see improvement and all of that. What is sort of your crystal ball looking to the future? What does Keke see for the future in terms of for youth, for business, for the sub-Saharan Africa, for Africa? Where do you see the world, and particularly in our context, in the next 5-10 years? What do you think the major things are going to be?
Oh, well, I think if we don't, particularly leaders, those of us that are in leadership positions, or we want to be leaders, let me first speak to those that are in leadership positions or want to be better leaders. Understand that affluence and influence are not the same thing. If you want to lead people in the next 5 years, you need to forget about affluence. I can, for example, I'm on social media, and I just, I post my comedic, and I'm not trying to be a leader on social media. And so know where you want to be a leader. I'm not trying to be an influencer according to social media. And I think we should put that word on social media. Let's call it an affluencer, because that's what you are. Because the life that you put on social media is not always the life that you lead.
Yeah.
If you're going to be an influencer and a leader, you have to be prepared to be naked in front of people. So I learned this a lot, especially in 2017 when I was the local president of JCI Mangaung. It was a very difficult year for me. But I believe I was able to go through it, number one, because of a very supportive team, but also because I was very transparent to that team. They saw when I was weak. They saw when I was not in good health. And I said to them, I want to continue, but I need you guys to lift my hands because I'm not at my best. And they did. I wouldn't be national president if it wasn't for those guys. So as a leader, you have to be prepared to be vulnerable. If you're going to use social media to try and influence people, be authentic.
Yeah. That
people really see what you think and what you feel about situations and about your own life. So people have to see. Like, for example, I'm a Christian, and one thing I always hated about Christians is that they always tell a positive testimony, how God delivered them out of something.
Yeah.
Tell us about the times where you felt God failed you, because a lot of people feel like God has failed.
Yeah.
So you're talking to people that associate with the positivity, and then it becomes this toxic positivity, and you're leaving behind thousands of people that feel like God has abandoned them. But when they look at you and they can say, hey, Andrew's had some tough times, but Andrew was able to get through it.
Yeah.
That's influence. And we need more influence, not really affluence. As such, I'm not a fan of social media. I'm on it, like I say, just, to laugh. But I think leaders, we need to get our hands dirty, which means I need to come to people's levels, understand what you're feeling, what are you going through, empathize with you. And then if I believe that I can lead you out of that situation, let me fight for you. And I think that's the hardest thing about our leadership. We have to up our leadership game. It's no longer about promising you that I'm going to change the country or promising you that I'm going to make the economy better. It's about really taking people from where they really are to the next level. If the next level is 2 steps, then you hand over the baton to somebody else to take them another 2 steps. And then that would be the second thing that I would think as leaders we need to do. We need to have one objective. One of the things I don't like about the National Development Plan, it doesn't say where we're going. It gives so many different points that it's like, okay, you group can choose where you want to go. You can choose where you want to go. That's division. Nothing is never going to be built with division.
Yeah.
Unlike you look at America. America says, this is the American dream. Every single person talks about the American dream. And the American dream didn't come from politicians. It actually came from banks. Because banks wanted to borrow people money.
Yeah.
But to borrow people money, you have to give them an asset. And they're like, the American dream is to buy a house, white picket fence.
Yeah.
We'll give you the money. But this is the American dream. And politicians, civil society, business, they all talk about the American dream to this day. So we don't necessarily, and no offense to our government, we don't need politicians to be the ones that set the agenda for the country. We can set that agenda. What's the South African dream? But let's not have 50 things that are a dream. Let's have one thing that we all say we're working towards as a nation. And you in your own space, you're working towards that goal. So I think that's very important. And I think it's urgent that we have that because the divisions are widening. The anger is growing.
Yeah.
I generally think that this nonsense of us fighting our African brothers, it's just not on. This nonsense of us fighting each other needs to come to an end. I understand the point of frustration. And I don't think we've done enough talking. I think politicians have done too much talking, that it's become lies. But I don't think citizens have done much talking. What I do love about our country is that we'll laugh at everything. That actually gives me hope. If somebody can laugh at their challenges, they still do believe that things can change. Yeah. But what I would challenge our citizenry to do is you be the change. Don't fold your hands.
So what, in terms of that practicality side of things, I'm a citizen. What sort of, I might feel that I'm disenfranchised for whatever reason, financially, economically, historically, culturally, whatever it might be. What sort of platform do I have to be able to, like you said, have that say, have that sort of voice?
So definitely not social media.
Yeah,
that's what I'll say, because the people who make decisions are not on social media. So making a noise on social media doesn't help. So you've got to make sure your message gets to the right person. And I learned this from a farmer in the Free State. That man had no problem getting in his bakkie and going to the Department of Agriculture, and will sit there until he gets an audience with the MEC. And when he gets his audience, he'll go tell a few more farmers, I spoke to the MEC, they said they're going to do X, Y, Z by such a date. When they don't, he went back. But now he went back with the people that he told.
So now he's got a following. He's an influencer rather than an...
Exactly. Oh. And then that group grows, and then that group grows, and then that group grows, and he grew in influence. So much so that the department knew that when this person comes in, we need to act, or else they will be back here next month and they will be on top of us. And I think that's what so there are those bodies. Like, for example, for business people, there's Business Unity SA and all these different people who are allegedly speaking for us. But sometimes, when you listen to them on TV, and you're like, I don't think you're speaking for us anymore. I think you're speaking for yourself now, because I don't see the conversation. So there are these type of bodies that are there. And this is where the debate takes place. I would obviously say join in those. It's very important. Not only because that's the way that our society is set up as now, but as an individual, you get to learn other things. When people get to hear your opinions and your passions, and you're not afraid to speak up in a group that's trying to fight a similar thing, you can quickly rise up to a leadership position and grow yourself as a leader to bring about that change. You can walk into parliament. There are things called public people bills. If you're a lawyer and you want, to put in a new act, write it up. Nothing is stopping. You just have to fight. There's so many small and ineffective parties in parliament. If you give them the good piece of legislation, they'll go do your bidding for you. You don't have to be a member of them, but you've got the solution. You just give it to somebody who's going to go and argue it in Parliament, and hey, Bob's your uncle. Just take the initiative. Just don't take the initiative on social media. Like I said, people that make the decisions, they're not on social media. So unfortunately, we have to tell people, get up and go. And the first step of being a change maker in your country is get up and go and vote. Don't ever think that your vote is insignificant. Even if, I just want to make a simple example. I have a beautiful little baby daughter. And as a dad, there are moments where I feel insignificant, but that doesn't stop me from being a dad.
Yeah.
So if you feel your vote is insignificant, it doesn't mean you're not a citizen. Go make that vote anyway. You still show up for your child, whether you're feeling significant or insignificant. Show up for your country, whether you think you're showing up is significant or insignificant. The point is, get on the field. Nobody's going to pass you the ball unless you're on the field.
Love it.
So get on the field. So I think that's the first starting point. And then when you vote, I think voting just brings about that whole experience. Firstly, standing in that line is going to frustrate you, and you're going to start thinking about, why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? It triggers something in your mind. And then when you vote, then you start thinking, but they could do more. They can do more. And you start getting more involved. So as small as a simple thing of, and you only have, once every 5 years. So why waste that opportunity? Yeah. Like if I was given the opportunity to speak to the CEO of Discovery once every 10 years, I don't care who's in the room. He's going to hear my voice and he will remember me. So that's your opportunity as a citizen. That's the first step. And then different things that you're involved in. I think getting involved, I think the cultural society, like the chess clubs, the Rotary Club, Interact, that's the word I was looking for. Those are platforms for young leadership development, because that's when you learn to start making your voice heard within a group.
Yeah.
And, it's better to get shut down when you're in high school, and you build up from that, and you keep going and you keep going. So I think people should do that. You shouldn't be so narrow-minded on, I go to work, I come back home, I take care of my wife, my kids, my 2 dogs. That's great. And we're really happy that you do that. It's very important that you do that. But within yourself, what's your potential? You can do much better than that.
Absolutely. So it's really about being as proactive as possible, not just sitting back and pointing fingers and complaining, but rewinding back to what you said previously is understanding yourself, taking ownership, taking accountability, and then taking action, getting onto that field and doing something about it.
Absolutely. That's really what it is. That's really what it is.
Love it.
I think South Africans, we love ourselves. I think people in South Africa generally do love themselves. But I think we haven't gotten to the point where we love ourselves as much as we might love our neighbor. So if I'm working at Eskom and something is not right, what would happen is that I'll use a silly example. Say you don't get free coffee at Eskom, and so everybody brings their own coffee, everybody brings their own sugar, everybody brings their own tea. We've become comfortable with that in South Africa. So what we post on social media is, oh, look, I just bought myself a new Merc. Oh, look, I just got myself a new wife. Oh, look, I just got a new house. There's not that, oh, look, my colleague and I, we both managed to get houses in the same year. There's not much we anymore. And I think we need a lot more empathy in South Africa than we currently do have right now. We need to think about it like a team sport. You're only as good as the weakest player.
Yeah.
Now, if you support Manchester United, that's the whole team. But
let's not bring that up. There's hope. Sorry. There's hope, and let's just put it that way.
See, if the whole team is useless, there's hope that they can be better.
Yeah.
And they will work towards that. And I think if we can realize that, hey, we're in a bad situation, and we can understand what that bad situation means to each other. Because I'm going to use the example of Russia for an example. Again, might be a touchy subject. I've noticed a lot of apathy from African countries towards the conflict in Russia and Ukraine. Yeah. And I ask myself, why is there that apathy? And people feel like yeah, but you guys didn't care, or the West didn't care when we said we're having terrorism, when we're busy fighting each other. You guys didn't care.
Yeah.
Why must we care now? Justifiable, but not right.
Mm.
You don't build a global community that way. And we've got to be so mature in our leadership to be like, okay, you didn't care when I was going through something, but because I know what you're going through, the negative impact it has, let me try and help you. That takes a lot of maturity and a lot of growing up to be able to say, you know what, Andrew, you didn't care when I was going through that, but I realize that you're going through it now. I'm here to lend a hand. Where can I help?
And really,
And
is
that's
that we together, we're in this together, regardless of everything that's happened. And it's us that we're in this.
Mm. We are. It's all connected. The world has become so much smaller that we can't say, oh, we're just fine here in South Africa. We can't say that anymore. You know, if Zimbabwe sneezes, they come here. They come to us. You know, if something happens in SA, we go to them. So it really is all connected, and we need to have that approach. That brotherhood of man is absolutely important.
So on that note, what is the next step for the national president? Could that title be sort of 100x, 10x into more of the political sphere? Are we going to see the next? What's next for you? What's your plans for the next little while? Obviously, because how long, from national presidency side of things, how long does that last? What is that term?
1 year.
Is it 1 year?
Has a 1 year to lead.
And then you're done. Hey, it's you off to the old farm. You put out to pasture.
That's it. But it's a fast. Sorry to hijack, but it's such a amazing principle, because we have that 1 year to lead, and in that 1 year, you've got to make the most impact in that 1 year.
Yeah.
Now the tricky thing about it is that you actually don't have a full year to make that impact. So the first month of the year, you're setting up your team, you're getting, and you're working with people. So not everybody, kicks off in January. So you might kick off in January, but maybe your star player is only going to kick off in June.
Yeah.
But then by June, you need to start preparing people for when you're no longer there. So you've got about 3 or 4 months to make a good impact that will carry on until the end of the year, whilst you prepare everybody else for the next leader or what's coming next.
So it's actually using the principles that you use in the communities, you actually do internally from a structure perspective, is that you come in, you've got to make an impact, and then you've got to make sure there's sustainability after that there's a follow-on process, there's successors in place. And I like it. Okay. Living the work that you do.
Absolutely. That's what it is. So I think for me, I'd love to, once I'm done in my term, I'd definitely, like to put my feet up, smoke a cigar, and hopefully look back on the year and say, well done, you. But in reality, that's what's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I just can't do that. So whatever I achieve this year, next year I'm going to try to do 10 times bigger, 10 times better.
You're living up to your name, though. The meaning of your name. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's multiply, yeah?
That's correct.
Ah, there you go.
That's correct. Yeah, so I hope to be more influential within JCI in the African continent. I'm not going to be taking up an office next year, because I honestly believe you don't need a title to be a leader.
100%.
The title comes once you assume the responsibility, and you assume the responsibility before the title comes.
Yeah, and you've got the credibility to go along with it.
Absolutely. So I'll still be involved in youth and leader development, very passionate about that. Still be involved in business. Maybe I'll take up the challenge without the permission of my bosses in JCI to start JCI in another country or in another town.
Yeah.
But keep the momentum going. That don't ever allow momentum to drop.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So I think that's what's in the future.
Listen, mate, it's been absolutely fantastic. It's been such a good catch up with you after 24 years. I'm loving what you're doing. And again, just the maturity with which you talk. And you've yeah, you've given me a lot to think about, a lot of insights. And like I said, I'm definitely going to quote you. I'm going to steal a lot of your thinking. But yeah, I'm really energized by hearing you talk, and specifically around from that youth perspective. It's very easy for people to go back and like you said earlier, point fingers at what's happening around them, but to take action for yourself, to be that authentic person, and also the responsibilities of being that authentic, credible leader is massively important, especially like we said, growing other leaders is pretty much your primary function as a leader. And we've got a huge opportunity on the African continent with regards to youth development. So well done. It's really, really feathering your cap. And yeah, continue doing the good work with JCI. And we must definitely catch up for a coffee or a beer sometime when I'm in either Lesotho or Bloemfontein. And it'll be good to chat in person and just cover what's happened else in the last 24 years.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. This was very fun. It was a nice catch up.
Absolutely. And obviously I'll put all your links down in the bottom, so if anybody wants to follow you on Instagram or anything like that, but they'll have the content for what JCI does, obviously your businesses and all of that, they'll be able to reach out and see if they can contribute and be part of and take action, stand up and do something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keke, listen, mate, take care of yourself. It's been absolutely great
Andrew.
again. And all the best for the future.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right. Take care.
Take care, man.
Cheers.
Cheers.